also present.
Great, thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on April 19th. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, could I have a motion and second? So moved by Director Randy, seconded by Director Ross. Secretary, please call roll.
Director Durante?
Aye.
Director Fraga? Aye. Director Higgins?
Aye.
Director Pang? Director Ross? Dr. Sager?
Aye.
Director Fuentes?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next is an ordinance authorizing the contract for Enterprise Resource Plan, ERP, software, implementation, and related services. Mark, you're up.
Is this on? All right. Thank you, Chairman Fuentes and the committee. Today, staff is requesting that the committee recommend board adoption of 3 ordinances allowing the executive director to enter into contracts for the purchase of software and services related to a new enterprise resource planning system. These contracts will allow the RTA to purchase, implement, operate, and maintain a suite of integrated applications for conducting our business over a period of 5 years. In the fall of 2016, the RTA began an initiative aimed at addressing the business objectives on the screen through enhancing the agency's business processes and technology. The initiative focuses on 10 functional areas, including accounting, budget, treasury, grants, capital, HR, and procurement. To give the committee some scale, the RTA is responsible for managing and overseeing, as you've heard today, $3 billion regional annual operating budget, a $4 billion regional 5-year capital program, $95 million in grants, $2.1 billion debt portfolio, $150 million in open contracts, and the information and records related to over 200 employees and retirees. The procurement of the new ERP software and services is just one piece of RTA's ERP initiative. The ERP initiative began with a thorough review of RTA's business processes and technologies, which concluded that the RTA would benefit from the implementation of a modern cloud-based ERP that better integrates our business processes and data. We then collected requirements from across the agency to determine what functionality we needed in an ERP. The procurement phase began last summer with the issuance of an RFP. We received 8 proposals and held 2-day product demonstrations with each of the 5 shortlisted firms. The preferred solutions were selected in late 2017, and we spent the first quarter of 2018 negotiating with vendors. The rest of 2018 will be spent designing, configuring, migrating, and testing the new system with the expectation of the new ERP going live in 2019. The solution we are recommending be purchased was proposed by Infor Public Sector Incorporated. This solution is centered on the Infor Cloud Suite Public Sector ERP as the core software for managing our financials, procurement, human resources, and budgeting processes, as well as monitoring the agency's performance through analytics. Integrated with the Infor Cloud Suite will be the Simpro Treasury Management Software and MHC Document Express software. The new ERP will handle over 90 business processes, integrate with RTA's banks, benefit providers, and other partners, provide portals for suppliers and vendors to bid on RTA procurements and submit their invoices, and feature a self-service HR portal for RTA employees. Staff is requesting an authorization of $5,927,195 for this procurement to be split among 3 contracts as shown on the screen. These contracts and the funding requested will cover the costs of implementing and maintaining the ERP solution through 2023. This amount includes a 3% contingency that will be available solely at the RTA's discretion. The Infor contract includes 1 5-year option that will require staff to come back to the board for authorization. The DBE goal established for this procurement is 7%, and Infor has submitted a DBE compliance plan that meets the DBE goal using local DBE firms, including Next Generation Incorporated and Ernest R. Sawyer Enterprises. Ernest R. Sawyer Enterprises is also certified as a veteran-owned business by the City of Chicago. The contracts each feature one-time costs related to implementation, as well as annual costs related to operating and maintaining the system. The cost of implementing the system is about $3.7 million, and annually, the cost of operating and maintaining the system, including software subscription licenses, will be approximately $412,000. As requested by the committee in April, staff has completed an analysis of the expected return related on this investment. The analysis shows that the RTA can expect a 21% return on its investment over the initial contract term and have payback within 4 years of the new ERP going live. The ROI analysis focused on 4 main areas of savings and benefits. The Infor ERP will replace 9 standalone legacy systems, including some that are beyond their useful life or are unsupported. Additionally, the new ERP will provide functionality for managing our debt portfolio, the regional budget, and the capital program, as well as our DBE compliance, all of which are currently managed through Excel spreadsheets, Access databases, and other standalone databases. The ERP will improve productivity through streamlined business processes, reductions in manual data entry and manual processing, automated workflows, and better integrations. RTA will accrue benefits through high system availability, regular software upgrades, robust disaster recovery, and high-quality end-user training materials. The Infor ERP will also reduce RTA's risks related to data security and integrity, as well as compliance with regulations, including those related to grants and bonds. Success of this initiative will be measured in many ways. Some of the indicators we plan on monitoring throughout the life of the Infor ERP are listed on the screen. Our month-end and year-end financial closing period should become shorter, thanks to integration with our banks and the ability of the system to automatically reconcile our transactions. By managing our financials, grants, payroll, and human resources information in a single system, staff will no longer need to manually enter or re-enter the same information into multiple systems. The single database of record will also eliminate many manual reconciliations between systems to ensure that our transactions are processed accurately and timely. The automation of business processes and approvals is expected to speed up our grant reimbursements and HR processes. From a technology perspective, the software as a service solution will guarantee a high level of system availability, and the user-friendliness of the system should reduce the number of help desk tickets opened by staff and completed through our IT department. Another topic that was raised in April was integration with the service boards. There are multiple business processes where data is exchanged between the RTA and service boards, as shown on the screen. The Infor ERP provides various options for streamlining and enhancing these data exchanges, including direct entry by the service boards, automated interfaces between RTA and service board systems, and spreadsheet uploads. The RTA and service boards have had discussions on these business processes and the points of interaction with the new ERP. The topic has been raised at meetings between the CFOs and budget teams regarding the development and management of the regional budget, and the RTA capital team has held meetings with their counterparts at each service board to discuss the impact to the capital program, including the potential for speeding up the processing of grant reimbursement requests and payments. We plan to continue these discussions and work with each service board as we implement the new system to find the most effective and efficient way of passing data between our agencies. The ERP implementation is expected to last approximately 16 months and will be split into 6 phases. Phase 0 focuses on project initiation and planning, including the development of a change management plan. Since the implementation of the Infor solution will result in significant technological and procedural changes, we want to make sure that this transition is seen as a positive change for RTA employees, our service board partners, vendors, and others that will interact with the new system. Phases 1 through 5 focus on the implementation of the individual software modules that make up the integrated ERP system. These phases include the configuration of the software, development of integrations, migration of data and testing, as well as training staff on how to use the new system. Each phase will be considered complete when the modules are in production and any initial operational issues have been resolved. As you can see, the plan is to have all modules live by summer 2019. The implementation of a new ERP is a transformative project that will have significant impact on the RTA as an agency and its employees. The project management team has spent a substantial amount of time understanding the work that each RTA staff member does and how up-to-date technology can help them become more efficient and productive. Throughout the organization, there is true excitement about the benefits of the new ERP, and the project team is ready to hit the ground running on implementing the Infor solution. I would like to thank all the business unit leads, subject matter experts, system users, and other employees who have participated in the ERP initiative to date. And I want to extend a special thanks to Nadine and her team for their hard work in managing this procurement and negotiating the contracts before the committee today. As we implement the new ERP, we will keep the committee and the rest of the board apprised of our progress and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments? Yes. Director Duraney?
On the one graph, it says begin spring 2018, go live 2019. On another graph, the implementation schedule had 5 segments. So I'm assuming that you'll begin the spring of 2018 and go through those 5 segments. But what do you mean by go live 2019?
Go live means when the software will be ready for staff to use to process our transactions.
After the 5 segments are?
Well, each phase, phases 1 through 5 are each individual software or multiple software modules. So we'll go live in phases. So the first, within ERP, obviously the core of it is your financials. So our financials will go live first. So when that phase is complete, that's so we'll be able to do our accounts payable transactions, our accounts receivable transactions. We'll be able to monitor all that. Later, the last phase is the budget software, and part of that is timed with the next year's budget cycle. So that'll be the last phase to go live. And so we'll roll out each phase, each module as it goes live, as it's ready for staff to use and as they're trained to use it. So it's a phased implementation.
Also, reading the summary, it said that software upgrades are included. Now, novice that I am at software, I do know that, let's say 2022 comes along and there's a software package that doesn't have the bells and whistles that are included in this contract. Are we going to be hit with any surprises in the future on additional costs? Should software change in any manner?
No, so we're investing in a software as a service, which means it's web-based, and the upgrades we're talking about is we buy certain modules, certain software. As Infor, they will release upgrades about every 6 months or twice a year. As those upgrades are pushed by them, more functionality, security upgrades, as those are completed by their team, they will push those to us, and it'll be a relatively seamless process, but there are no surprises. We are guaranteed those. All the functionality that we get day one will continue to receive, maybe even more as we move forward, and our costs are fixed for the first 5 years. So we just pay an annual fee that is fixed, and it includes those upgrades.
Anyone else? Dr. Sager?
Obviously, I'm catching up on all of the information via minutes of past committee meetings and the board meetings, but I think we can all acknowledge the fact that discussions, if you will, with regards to investments in ERP systems are incredibly challenging because of the sheer magnitude of the investment which is actually being made on behalf of the organization, whether that's a local unit of government, whether that's an institution or a simple organization. It's a challenging situation. I'm grateful for the summary of the return on investment that's provided by staff and had a chance to have a discussion with staff on some things. But I appreciate the analysis in terms of the savings, and as I look at this, and if I do my math correctly, it's about a $1.625 million savings on an annual basis as identified, plus, and I think there's an important plus, an opportunity to be able to save in terms of professional staff as well. I think we all acknowledge the fact that frequently organizations are faced with the largest investment that they make in any budget year in terms of personnel and staff, a huge investment. And as I understand the document that's been presented to board members today, there is a potential savings of 6 full-time employees. And I understand that some of those have already been realized or accomplished, if you will, and some are anticipated. I had a chance to talk to Leanne about that just a little bit more yesterday, but if you wouldn't mind summarizing some of that for us, I'd appreciate that very much, Leanne.
So we do see these savings. We do anticipate. I will say this is off budgeted. So these are all budgeted numbers. We are currently well below budget in terms of staffing allocation. So really what we are looking to do, what we see is taking these savings and working with senior leadership here to identify what's the best way to reallocate or redeploy staffing, or what happens through natural attrition, all the different things. So as we implement, this will be one of the things that we monitor and look at as we go forward and understand better what the implementation of the ERP allows staff to, what it means to staff workload, as well as, you know, it's going to take us at least a year and a half, or about a year and a half, to implement. So starting to see these savings is far down the road. And, you know, as we've heard today, there's a lot of work that we as an agency could need to do over that time period. And we don't know, with all the uncertainty going on in Springfield, DC, and beyond, what we as an agency 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now want to do and need to do to meet our statutory and regulatory needs, as well as other things that this board or through our work planning we identify as work to be done. So we'll work to, you know, manage our headcount, our staffing, to make sure we're achieving what we as an agency need and want to achieve.
Well, I appreciate the routine analysis of staffing needs in order to be able to be efficient as an organization and institution. But I also think it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that there is a strongly planned, if you will, element of a savings associated with the implementation of the ERP in terms of personnel, and that's a huge issue. It's hard sometimes to put a direct annual value on that, because obviously there's a changing or an almost dynamic perspective to that, but I do think that that's important for us to consider. The bottom line for me, as I look at this, it's a huge investment. Bottom line is that we're really going to experience organizational, structural, procedural, if you will, shifts that are necessary to accommodate efficiencies. It's all about efficiencies in my mind, and while this is, again, a very large investment, I think that there are significant annual realized savings. I think there would be additional savings in terms of personnel, and in my mind, it is something worthy of support by this committee and this board. So I'm grateful for the responses that have been received by staff and the addressing of the questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Director Melvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to follow up on Director Durante's question, the $400,000 a year won't change, right? That's locked until 2023. Is that correct?
That is an average, so it does change annually, but that's the average. The average, the $2 million plus, that is fixed overall. So in each year is
Okay.
fixed. But
So
that
you
is-
won't
I
have to
just wanna
come
point out
back
that
and
is an
say
average.
the number's different or anything like that. We know that it won't get any higher. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, on the DBE piece was 7%. Does that seem reasonable? Was there a chance for more, or can you speak to that, please?
So we have a DB every procurement above a certain level goes through a process of identifying opportunities for subcontracting, and through our regulatory compliance division, they look at the opportunities as well as the availability of disadvantaged business enterprises to participate in these contracts. So I'm not the expert in the weeds of how they go about that, but I do know we went through the process. We provided some information. They do their analysis, and that's what came back to us was the 7%. So I don't know if Nadine can add more.
Yeah, we go through a fairly robust process of reviewing each and every solicitation for opportunities for subcontracting. So with software, there's a little bit of a challenge because software is a product. It's like buying a pen. You buy the pen, there isn't any opportunity for any subcontracting service with that. So the piece of the procurement that is pure software purchase wouldn't have any subcontracting ability. So where you have the 7% is with regard to all the implementation services, the maintenance, the support, and all of that, but that's a lesser amount than the full $6 million. So that's where we came up with $7 million on the overall purchase. I'm sorry, 7%. Sorry. 7% on the overall $5.9 million purchase.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one
Director
comment.
Payne?
You did a very nice job of capturing all our questions and the conversations last time. Very thorough analysis, and I think very thoughtful on the impact on the staff, that you're going to achieve those efficiencies through managing vacancies, redeploying, and attrition, which I think is thoughtful. It achieves the same thing, but in a very thoughtful way. So I also know that you spent time with a lot of board members, and Director Anderson couldn't be here today, but I think all his questions were answered as well. So, thank you.
Yes.
Great.
Anyone else? Director DeWitt?
Not a member of the committee, but perhaps some anecdotal evidence. Calling back on my municipal background, we went through an almost identical process back in 2010 and 11 in the city of St. Charles. The process that's being implemented was almost identical to what we did, from the standpoint that, it was broken out into these different phases. And I don't want to say it was spoon-fed to the staff, but I think being very deliberate in the implementation of each of these components is important. And while I wasn't directly involved in a lot of it, I also recall a number of training sessions that involved employees kind of as each segment of the organization was kind of pulled into the process. Those training sessions were very important. I assume this process will follow a similar path.
Yeah, in terms of training, we have two different kind of segments of training. We one of the first things we'll do is a project team foundational training. So, assuming passage today, the vendor will come in. They will train the key decision makers in the different business units, so we all become familiar with the terminology of the software, the capability of the software. So we're making the educated configuration decisions. Obviously, we go through then a process of configuring the system, testing the system, and at the end, before we go live, there's significant end-user training that will go, so that we'll be able to disseminate the information across the organization. And one of the things we wanted to make sure that we got out of this contract, and I mentioned the high quality end-user training materials. It's not just what we do right before go live. We know staff change roles. New staff leave, new staff comes in. So what are the leave behinds, and how have we educated internally to make us as self-sufficient as possible, so we aren't wholly relying on the vendor support. So we have there is a significant component of end-user training and long-lasting end-user training, so that as new staff come in, or staff change their jobs, change roles, we have materials and the people expertise here to make sure they're adequately trained, so that we are maximizing and leveraging every efficiency we can.
Sure. And if I may, that brings up a great point. I recall the same types of conversations at City Council about just how efficient is this process going to be? Are we going to be able to cut, staff, manpower, save money? I don't recall that really ever happened, although the employees that we had all became much more efficient in doing their jobs, not chasing their tail with 2 or 3 different systems that they had to operate in, dealing with different entities within the organization. So I like the efficiency aspect. I'm not so sure about the headcount issue, if it's reality or not, but the efficiencies of the new system certainly will make a big difference for RTA, like it did for us in St. Charles. Thank you.
Anyone else? I would just like to add, Mark, great job on the ROI summary. I think you heard what the board and the committee wanted and addressed every issue, so congratulations to you and your team. With that said, could I have a motion to approve? By Director Pang, seconded by Director Ross. Secretary, please call roll.
Director Durante?
Aye.
Director Frega? Aye. Director Higgins?
Aye.
Director Pang? Aye. Director Ross? Director Sager?
Aye.
Director Fuentes?
Aye.
7 ayes, no absent.
Thank you. If there's no more further business to come before the public session of the Planning and Administrative Committee, I will entertain a motion and second to adjourn. So moved, Director Durante. Seconded, Director Frega. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.
Good morning, everyone. I will call the regular board meeting of the Regional Transportation Authority to order. And if we would, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Director Durante, will you lead us in it, please?